Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Benched Podcast. I'm Aaron Valentino. I'm joined, as always, by Brandon Ladd and Jacob Johnson. Guys, how are we doing? Week 3 of the Benched Podcast.
Yeah, doing good.
Jake?
Good.
Jake, you have a new, nice, scenic background today.
Yeah, no, I decided to – I kind of wanted to try it during the day to see how it looked, but I got my window in my room. I kind of ditched the chair. Thought I brought a desk in here, do some work in here, be a productive college student.
There we go. Ladd, you also seem to have a new scenery.
Yes, daytime spot. People are using the basement right now. It doesn't have nice sports stuff in the background, but it's nice. Audio's a little better.
I have my same background with my childhood trophies behind me, all my accomplishments that I had when I was 5. Anyway, let's this episode we're going to be talking about the NFL draft. We're kind of going to go through each division with the draft being next week, and we're going to kind of try and predict or who we think teams should draft at what position and what player. And we are going to start with as what Jake describes as the best division in football, the NFC East.
Well, I kind of did something a little different. While you guys were getting your Z's last night, I made my own mock draft. I went through, looked at a bunch of different experts, watched a couple of videos, looked at the top projected rankings of everybody, top 100 players in the draft. So when you guys go team by team, I'll let you do your analysis, and then I'll do mine, and I'll let you know my pick.
Let's get right into it. We're going to start with the Cowboys at the top of the division. And Brandon Ladd, you're kind of our Cowboys expert here. Could the Cowboys possibly be drafting a backup QB for Dak to give him a little bit of competition?
They will be drafting a backup QB, but they're not going to waste a first, second, or probably even a third. It's probably going to happen in the 4th round like they found Dak back in 2016. But the Cowboys' strategy, first 3 rounds, and I've talked about it, wrote about it, is they need to find a safety, cornerback, and defensive end or wide receiver. They really can't go wrong if they find solid players, though. Their free agency strategy was to plug holes, and now they're looking for special talents to come in. So as long as they don't drop an egg for this NFL draft, they're in good shape after free agency.
I think it would be definitely interesting to see if the Cowboys do take a backup QB for Dak. Cowboys seem to like Dak. Analytics seem to like Dak. Pro Football Focus definitely likes Dak. In this mock draft that I'm looking at over here, it says they're going to take an edge rusher, Clavian Chasen out of LSU, which also I think could be interesting. The Cowboys defense could use a little bit of improvement, I think, after last year. Not much, just a little bit of retooling. So I think that would definitely be, something interesting to watch out for the Cowboys.
I just got a few notes on the Cowboys. They still have a solid offensive line. They really don't need to build there. It's kind of their defensive side. Honestly, all these picks depend where everyone else goes before them. They lost Byron Jones. They lost Robert Quinn. So I have Christian Fulton, another quarterback, another one from LSU. But I also have penciled in there Clavian Chasen, the one that you just said, Aaron. I have him actually going the next pick to the Dolphins. But either of those picks will look really good for the Cowboys because, you have Aldon Smith and you have Ladd. The other name escapes me. Who's the other troubled defensive end that they have?
Randy Gregory. So you can't really go wrong with a defensive end, especially when you don't have those sure possibilities there. And you got to replace Byron Jones. So I have Christian Fulton from LSU.
Cowboys definitely an interesting team to look at. Now moving down to the Eagles. I think they're kind of looking at a wide receiver to help Carson Wentz out a little bit. The mock draft I'm looking at, they're going to take Justin Jefferson out of LSU. They have the 21st overall pick. It would be interesting to see if they do need a wide receiver. Everybody's talking about Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. I'd be interested to see if they try to maybe trade up to the top 10 because it doesn't seem like either of those two are going to really escape the top 10 or top 15. But, yeah, the Eagles definitely need a wide receiver to help Carson Wentz out. It's definitely a deep receiver draft for sure, and the Eagles need that. It would be interesting to see, though, if they would want one of those top 2 guys in Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb.
The Eagles definitely picked a good year to need a wide receiver. They lost a bunch of them in free agency. A lot of it has to do with Carson Wentz's contract, something that we see with quarterbacks that are overpaid slightly. You can't keep the talent around them. So this is definitely a good year for the Eagles to need a wide receiver. You have Jeudy, you have T. Higgins, you have CeeDee Lamb, You have a whole bunch of players. Justin Jefferson out of LSU is a solid pick. Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State is a guy that's really rising up draft boards. There's a bunch of names. They have 16 wide receivers that could go in the first 2 rounds. Something I would want to see for the Eagles, though, they might want to go with the offensive tackle first, because you can get a solid starting wide receiver in this draft in the second and third round. I'm not so sure you can find a starting offensive tackle outside of the first round.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Just the note I have is they literally have no wide receivers. They had Nelson Aguilar, and then they ended up losing him. For the Eagles, I agree with you, lad, that offensive tackle is definitely necessary. But picking at 21, it's kind of deep. And, a lot of these good offensive tackles are going to go in the top 15. And a lot of these really, solid wide receivers that we're seeing, the Judy, the Justin Jefferson, the CeeDee Lamb, the Henry Ruggs, they're also going top 15. So I have them taking Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State, but he's been on the rise recently, and a lot of people have him, falling in this mid-range of the first round.
Moving on now to the New York Giants. They have the 4th overall pick in this year's draft, and Isaiah Simmons has been the name talked about for the last couple of days I've seen on Twitter of the Giants possibly taking that linebacker in Isaiah Simmons. There's also been talk of them possibly getting another cornerback. There's a lot of different things the Giants can do in this draft. Brandon, where do you think exactly the Giants are going to go?
I love Isaiah Simmons, versatile player, but I don't love him going to the Giants. The Giants' defense is fine. They need to retool their front 7, but not so often is there a 6'7", 365-pound offensive tackle in the form of Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. This is a guy that the Giants need to grab it for if they are committed to keeping Daniel Jones safe for the next decade.
See, I agree with you on that, lad. I love Isaiah Simmons. I think he's honestly probably the best player in this draft other than Chase Young. And he's so versatile, can do everything. He can play safety, he can cover, he can play DN. I have 2 plans for the Giants. If they stay at 4, take Isaiah Simmons. If you're going to stay there, take him. But if your plan is to not take Isaiah Simmons at 4 and you're going to take an offensive tackle, don't take the offensive tackle at 4. Trade down, get some picks. If you can trade to 9 or 10 or even 12 or 13 late, in the middle of that first round, you're still going to have probably Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wirfs there to take. And you're going to be getting picks back that you're going to use in later rounds to rebuild your linebacking core, pick up some more offensive tackles, another wide receiver. But do not take an offensive tackle at 4, Dave Gettleman. That'll be the dumbest thing that you can do, because you can get the same exact offensive tackle at 9, 10, or 11 in the draft.
In this mock draft, Becton is going number 9 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I'm a little surprised you're saying that, Jake, because you've been on this Giants offensive line for a while, and why wouldn't you just want the best offensive tackle? You can get the best offensive tackle at 4. I'm interested to see why wouldn't you take it there.
I just think there's a chance that the Chargers and Dolphins are going to go most likely quarterback, Tua, Herbert, Jordan Love, and then I don't have the Panthers taking an offensive tackle. I do have Arizona taking one, and then I don't have the Jaguars taking one. So if you could maybe with the Jaguars or the Panthers, who might want to jump ahead of the Chargers and Dolphins to try and maybe get a quarterback. They might want to be in that market. They might want Isaiah Simmons. If you can jump to 7, you're going to get picks in return, and the teams above you don't need an offensive tackle. You'll still have your choice of offensive tackles, and you'll be getting picks in return. So I just think that's probably the best idea. But I actually circle Isaiah Simmons on mine right now. That's who I want, and that's who I think the Giants should take.
Giants going to be a fun team to watch next Thursday. Now for the Redskins, it's pretty obvious they're going with Chase Young. I don't see them going any other direction. Do either of you two?
They need to grab Chase Young at 2. That's fine. But then they got to decide what they're going to do with their Pro Bowl offensive tackle, Trent Williams, who does not want to be with them. Away and figure out what they can get for him. They can get a lot of draft capital on draft night for trading him away. Solid left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be really, really stupid not to take Chase Young. And, like you said, Trent Williams doesn't want to be there. Maybe you could trade with one of these late end first round teams and get, the 28th, 29th pick in the draft, or an early second round pick. Again, you could have 2 right off the bat in the second round. And, you need weapons for Dwayne Haskins. And I think that they can rebuild their defense. They could get a lot of picks. They really don't have that many. It starts with Chase Young, look for some wideouts, and then get some secondary help.
Definitely for sure. Now moving over to the AFC East, we're going to start with the New York Jets. And this is I've been saying it all year, this is really the perfect draft for the New York Jets. They need an offensive line and they need a wide receiver. And at 11, both of those things are going to be available. My personal preference is any offensive tackle they take in this draft is going to be an upgrade over what they had this past season. So if they get that in the second or third round, that's already an upgrade of what they had. Sam Darnold has no weapons. He has Jamison Crowder in the slot, Le'Veon Bell in the backfield, and then either Chris Herndon or Ryan Griffin at tight end. He currently has no wide receivers with Robbie Anderson leaving, and Quincy Enunwa's future with the Jets is uncertain. I think if CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy are available at 11, I personally think you have to go with one of them.
I completely agree with you. If Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, or even Henry Ruggs III with his 4.27 time, if those guys are available at 11, you need to grab them because their free agent signing of George Fant is huge because that's a plug-and-play tackle for them. So they're able to fill a hole if they need to wait to the second or third round to find an offensive tackle and grow them a little bit, maybe start them on the right side at first. So the Jets go wide receiver first and then figure out your offensive tackle situation.
Yeah, I agree. I put no wideouts, no O-line. But at 11, in my mock draft, I don't have anyone taking a wide receiver before the Jets. So you have to go with the sure thing here. You have to give Sam Darnold that weapon. I really compare Jerry Jeudy to Julio Jones. I really think that he's kind of that caliber type of player. And I think that the Jets would make a mistake here not going with Jerry Jeudy. I think an offensive tackle would be phenomenal for this team because, they're lacking that department too. But as I said, you got to go with the sure thing, Jerry Jeudy at number 11 to the Jets.
What's going to be your reaction, Aaron, when they pick a defensive tackle at 11?
Yeah, like they do every single year. Yeah, that's going to be great. Moving on to the New England Patriots, they lost a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are really curious to see where Bill Belichick is going to go in this year's draft. Guys, they could use a quarterback. They did just lose Tom Brady. The mock draft I have them in, they have them taking Justin Herbert at 18, which I think is a little too late for Justin Herbert in this particular mock draft. But I could definitely see them going Jordan Love if he falls all the way down there.
I've never seen an NFL draft where there's good quarterbacks available from about 15 to 25 because the guys whose stocks are rising, everybody gets in that top 10 and loads up on them. And then we've seen examples of guys that just drop right out of that first round and don't touch them. I think Justin Herbert's going to be that guy. He's either going to be selected in the top 10 or nobody's going to touch him until that second round. So if you're the Patriots, your only option at quarterback is if you want to take a chance on Jordan Love. That doesn't seem like the Belichick way, but we don't know anymore after Tom Brady. If they don't go with Jordan Love, they're probably going to be looking at a wide receiver or a defensive end. They got to make up for a lot of losses on defense, but also they had no skill position guys last year. So they can really not go wrong with this pick unless they reach for the wrong quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree. It wouldn't surprise me. It's really hard to do a mock draft on Bill Belichick because he could go anywhere with this and people would be happy about it and he would somehow turn them into the star. I have them staying at 23. I think that they're going to find their Brady replacement here. I think that they're going to take Jordan Love. But if Jordan Love is gone, they could go with his name is Yetur Gaj-Moss. He's from Penn State. He's the DN. His draft stock is also rising. And that wouldn't surprise me if the Patriots took him. And especially Bill Belichick, it'd be really surprising if he does take the quarterback, in my opinion. But I think that he likes what he sees from Jordan Love. I've heard from McShay and Mel Kiper that he likes Jordan Love, and I could see them going there at 23 or trading up because Love's draft stock is rising and taking him at 18 or 15 or one of those teams up there.
Or they could draft a receiver, tank this year with Brian Hoyer, and then get Trevor Lawrence the next year. That would be that would be one crazy move by Belichick.
I just don't think Bill Belichick likes to lose. That's why I don't.
Yeah,
think
that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. Moving on now to the Miami Dolphins. They had a big offseason, and it's about to get a whole lot bigger when they draft Tua at number 5. It was tanked for Tua from the beginning of the season. They were supposed to get the number 1 overall pick. They're going to get 5, but they are still going to land Tua, according to a lot of different people.
It was tank for Tua, then it was, oh no, we're too good, and then it was, oh no, he's getting hip surgery. We still have a chance for him. Should we still take him at 5? I've been hearing reports, a lot of reports that are saying the Dolphins are not sold on Tua, and they're going to be drafting either Jordan Love or Justin Herbert at number 5. That's the intel I have. So do not be surprised if Tua is not selected by the Dolphins, because they're committed to Ryan Fitzpatrick being their quarterback in 2020. They feel like they're a playoff team. So don't shake your head. They think they're a playoff team with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So they might pass on Tua and go with Jordan Love or Justin Herbert, the guy that will sit behind Fitzpatrick for a year.
Yeah, and I was actually just watching before this. I was watching the Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, mock draft special was a week ago. And Tua fits in Miami. He is, he's the speedy out of the pocket quarterback. Injuries are really the big question with him, but he is going to be sitting behind Ryan Fitzpatrick for a year. Tua even said that he would not mind sitting for a year to, make sure that he is healthy. So I have Miami going with Tua. They have 2 more picks in the first round. They have one at 18, and then they also have one at 26.
Book last night? Oh my goodness. You're like,
and I think that the Dolphins at 18 go with Chasen from LSU at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just another solid pickup there. And then I think they get their running back of the future and they take DeAndre Swift in with 26 at the end of the first round, because I think he'll be there. A lot of people are dropping him to the second round, but I think that they could, take a reach, because I think he's definitely a player that is worthy of a reach. And then he's their running back for the next 5 to 10 years, because I think he has that capability.
The Dolphins, they had a big offseason, like I said, and it's about to get a whole lot bigger. The team that won free agency for the AFC East this year in the Buffalo Bills, they're coming in at a pick. And, guys, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what the Bills need. They did a lot of retooling in free agency. The mock draft I have, they're going to be taking a defensive end in A.J. Espina from Iowa. They don't have a first-round pick. They're going to be drafting in round 2. But it's really just about kind of finishing pieces and maybe just getting some depth for them.
After the Bills were able to get Stephon Diggs, they became the most complete roster in the NFL. Don't confuse complete and most talented. We have a lot of more talented rosters, but the Bills are the one team this year. I feel like they have no holes. You can't go wrong. You cherry pick the best prospects, you bring them in, so it's not going to be that hard of a draft for them.
I have the Bills, with their second round pick. And I think they pair one of those with Diggs. I think they go Kelvin Harmon out of Penn State. I think that he's a very solid receiver. He's kind of the opposite of Diggs. He's taller, a lanky receiver, and just give Josh Allen another target. It's a second-round pick, and I think Harmon deserves that. And especially with this Bills team, they're really solid at a lot of positions. So where they're going to be drafting, it's kind of just like a fill. They don't have any desperate needs right now. The secondary could use another cornerback, maybe another safety to pair with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. But wide receiver was what it was for me.
Bills are focused on the regular season. They're just looking to get the finishing touches to a great offseason. Now moving on to the NFC North. The Lions at number 3. It looks like they're going to take Okuda to replace Slay at number 3. I don't think they want to trade down. He's definitely going to be there at 3, with Burrows probably going 1 and Chase Young probably going 2. You guys see them going really anywhere else with this?
No, they got to go with Okuda. This is make or break for Patricia, though. This is his last season in Detroit if they do not take a significant step forward. But the other teams in the division didn't do much in free agency. You can say that the Vikings took a step back. The Packers didn't do anything. And the Bears did not get much better. So this is the Lions' chance, and you better hope that is able to step up like Darius Slay was the past few years.
Yeah, the Lions got to replace Slay. Jeff Okuda's a fast. He's a big, great lockup corner, and he kind of mirrors Darius Slay. They're kind of the same build. Okuda's just a little taller than him and a little bigger. Jeff Okuda last year allowed only 15 catches, 178 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's a really impressive stat sheet for a cornerback, especially coming out of Ohio State when you're playing in that type of a conference in the Big Ten. So they can't really go wrong here. You got to go Okuda. If somehow they mess up, then Matt Patricia's gone.
Moving on now to the Minnesota Vikings. They had an interesting offseason. They got a couple of picks. They traded away Stephon Diggs. They're kind of a big question mark. They seem to be able to win at least one playoff game a year. Brandon, what are the Vikings going to be doing in this draft?
This is one of my favorite papers in my binder. So the Vikings going into the 2020 season, the Diggs trade, they get the 22nd overall pick, and then they get they also get a 5th and a 6th rounder for this draft. So what did they do this offseason? They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their top 3 cornerbacks. They lost their number 2 pass rusher. They lost safety depth, and they lost Linval Joseph in the middle of their defense. So what do they need in the draft? Offensive line, as always, a wide receiver, about 4 cornerbacks and safeties, a backup safety, and a solid pass rusher. Jake, how do you have them getting all 9 of those in this draft?
You kind of got to chip away. You kind of got to get these pieces one by one. At 22 with the Vikings, I have them taking one of my favorite prospects in this draft, the LSU linebacker, Patrick Queen. He can come off the edge. He's really quick. I've seen him going higher. I've seen him going lower. I've seen him dropping into the 2nd round. I think he fits right now for the Vikings. I said that they need weapons. They need offense line. They need these DNs. And I think Patrick Queen could be, that DN linebacker unit on the outside and that he can rush the passer. I have them doing that at 22. And then 25, I have them going with the offensive tackle from Houston, Josh Jones. That kind of shores up their offensive line tackle issue. They're going to need a solid guard later in the rounds. But Josh Jones, I've seen him also dropping in the 2nd round, but he's another solid offensive tackle in this draft.
Moving on to the Green Bay Packers, a team that was great and is going to stay great as long as Aaron Rodgers is calling signals under center. I've heard they could possibly take a quarterback, maybe a Jordan Love if he's going to fall all the way down, or Lad thinks Justin Herbert's going to fall. Maybe they could take him. Aaron Rodgers is 35. The Packers did draft Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was 35, so it's kind of interesting dynamic there. Or another target for Aaron Rodgers, maybe going wide receiver.
Yeah, if they're Aaron Rodgers centric, they're going to go with a wide receiver. We know Aaron Rodgers' personality. You cannot bring a threatening quarterback into that quarterback room. This is not the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers situation of 15 years ago. This is going to be, what is their future? Do they believe Aaron Rodgers is their future, or do they believe Jordan Love is their future? So I'm assuming, because Rodgers has been there from the beginning, they're going to go with Rodgers, which I don't think is the correct choice. I think Aaron Rodgers is getting towards the end of his career and they can upgrade. But either they go offensive line or wide receiver to help Rodgers out.
I think Aaron Rodgers has another 2 or 3 solid seasons in him before they need to look at drafting a quarterback. I think maybe next year. I don't really know who the high-end draft prospects are for next year other than Trevor Lawrence. But you could go with one next year, give Rodgers this year. I think you give him another weapon to pair across from Devontae Adams. I have Jalen Reagor from TCU. He's a quick weapon. He's very small, so he's going to be the complete opposite of Devontae Adams. And Aaron Rodgers loves weapons. He loves getting new people the ball, and I think that's just something you got to do if you're the Green Bay Packers.
Moving on now, final team in the division, the Chicago Bears. They kind of had an interesting offseason. They were able to trade for Nick Foles in that big contract. No first-round pick for them this year. Brandon, where do you kind of think the Bears are going to go this year?
The Bears, as always, new quarterback this year, Nick Foles, so they need to bring in weapons. So you got to protect them, offensive line and wide receiver. It seems like a common theme, but this is such a deep draft, so it's a good issue to have. The Bears, they were able to get Robert Quinn in the out of free agency from the Cowboys. That one stung a little bit. They overpaid for him mightily, though. And their 2nd round, though, I read a Pro Football Focus article that said their 2nd round will decide if they're a playoff team or if they're a 4-win team. And Pro Football Focus says if they get 2 secondary players, they will be a playoff team with their 43rd and 50th overall pick. If they go wide receiver or offensive lineman there, they say they're a 4-win team. So, Jake, I don't know what you're thinking, but are you with Pro Football Focus there?
I actually had them, when I slotted it in, I kind of said either cornerback or wide receiver. But at the same time, secondary is kind of something that you can't go wrong with. And this player to me, I think that he's a first-round prospect, but there's not too many safety-needy teams in this round. I think you go Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota. He has the resume. He's played well, and I think he would be a great fit in Chicago.
Now moving on to the AFC North. The Bengals, they bobbed for Burrows this year. And, guys, they're going to get him. They're going to take him with that number 1 overall pick.
Pro Football Focus has him at – can you guys tell I got my Pro Football Focus subscription back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Pro Football Focus says Burrows is the most accurate quarterback they have ever studied in their years of doing this. And I have to agree with them. It was the most amazing year as an LSU fan. Burrows is going to come in with a nice skill set in the RPO play action game and can run pro concepts from a year ago before Joe Brady came and changed the offense to spread. So this guy can do it all. He's going to help the Bengals out. Later in the draft, though, are they going to be able to find him an offensive line to protect him, though?
Yeah, the Bengals, they need more than a quarterback. I think Joe Burrows is a good start. And I have them, I obviously have them taking Joe Burrows. I wrote here, do they trade back with Miami or the Chargers and get a lot of draft capital and still get a quarterback? But I think you can't pass up on Joe Burrows. A lot of people are comparing him to Andrew Luck when he came out of college, that type of player, a prospect that we haven't seen in a long time. And you can't miss this. You got to go with him. He's the future of your franchise. And I think that, you can't really go wrong taking Joe Burrows, especially after what we saw last year at LSU.
No, absolutely not. Moving on to the Browns. They could do a couple different things, the Browns. I think they're looking for an offensive line to kind of protect the prize in Baker Mayfield. But could OBJ get out, and could OBJ get them some more picks, Brandon?
Well, they have two options here. They could keep OBJ and try to make him happy with the new coach coming into town from the Vikings, Stefanski. New offense, they're going to do a lot of 2 tight end sets. So I think they're going to try to help their defense out because they have a set offense after free agency. A lot of people disagree with me. After free agency, I feel like if they get a solid defense, they're better than Baltimore. A lot of people disagree with me there. But if my personal opinion, keep OBJ and focus on defense.
I don't think that you should trade OBJ. I think that you should give him a year with all these new weapons, the new head coach. I disagree with that. I think that they're very weak in the left tackle position. I was looking at their depth chart last night, and that is where they're really bad. So I looked at the offense tackles, and I looked at, who was the most natured and good-looking left tackle out there, and it's Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. I think he fits in very well for the Browns, and that's where they go at 10.
Now moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, the MVP. It looked like they were a finished product. Maybe the team just needs another year of grooming. Honestly, I could see them going wide receiver with a late pick and maybe help out Lamar Jackson a little bit more.
I felt like Mark Ingram made their offense a little one-dimensional last year. Great running back downhill, but he didn't give much in the spread offense. So this is where you can go with Swift, you can go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You need to bring in a guy that can catch passes from that running back position. You don't need a Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. You need yourself a James White. You need that spread running back that's able to chunk a lot of first downs for you and protect you on third down. So the Ravens, pick a spread running back that you're able to split snaps with Ingram going into next year.
Yeah, Len, I completely agree that they need a running back, but I don't have that till the second round because I think that there's a lot of decent running backs that are like that caliber, like a DeAndre Swift. Something that I had little penciled in there for the Ravens in the second round is J.K. Dobbins. I think that he fits very well there, and I think he'll be there for the second round. I gave them Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. Actually, I watched his highlight tape the other day because one of the Giants accounts posted it. He's a middle of the defense guy, and Baltimore really seems to like that. Mel Kiper, on the other hand, thinks that Patrick Queen is going to fall all the way to 28 with the Ravens, and he has Patrick Queen every single one of his 4 mock checks that he's done. I don't think he's going to drop that far, so that's why I picked Bond. But there's another one in Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma, and the Ravens love their Oklahoma linebackers, but I don't think he falls that far either.
Definitely going to be an interesting one to see for the Ravens. Now moving on to the Steelers. Big Ben is coming back this year. That's kind of big for them. But where do we see the Steelers possibly going this year? Could they take a quarterback, or do they feel confident in Duck Hodges as their future?
They might take a quarterback later, maybe a Jalen Hurts, but again, Big Ben, you got to believe he has a few years left to maybe consider, if his surgery went well, that this gave him extra years to life. Maybe he lost a little velocity, but you still need to put weapons around him regardless of how the surgery turned out. So you got to put wide receivers around him. You got to figure out running backs, and also you need to bring in a secondary guy, because that's the one piece on the Steelers defense that was missing from last year.
Yeah, and they don't have a first-round pick, and I don't really see them trading into the first round. We'll see how Big Ben does. I have them taking a D end in the second round. When it comes to their pick, it's going to be really slim pickings at that point for D ends. Not a very solid group, except for it's kind of top heavy with in the first round. So I have them going D end there, but it's going to be interesting for the Steelers to see what they can do with all the picks that they've gathered.
Now moving on to the NFC South, the Bucs had a big offseason. Anytime you get Tom Brady on your team, that is a big offseason. Now they could get possibly some weapons for Tom Brady, or maybe add to a very mediocre defense.
Yeah, their defense was very, on par last year. They were very average. But as always, when you lose a guy that throws 30 interceptions, you assume that will make your defense better. So in the first few rounds, if you're the Buccaneers, you need to focus on offensive line. You need to protect Brady. Our first show, I talked about that stat that said Brady's been sacked on average 26 times each of his seasons. The Bucs gave up near 50 sacks last year. You need to protect Brady at all costs.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I read. You need to protect Tom Brady. And I put, they're at 14. I think he drops this far. Mekhi Becton from Louisville. He's one of the best offensive tackles in this draft, and the Bucs need that. Tom Brady, I'm sure he's in the ownership's ear and saying, hey, I came here, I'm 36 years old, or however, 38, and you need to protect me, because I'm not going to be getting sacked 28, 30 times this season. Get me one of the strongest offensive tackles in this draft and see what I can do with this offense.
Moving from one future Hall of Fame quarterback to another future Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. I don't think they're going to be focusing on offense. I think it's going to be a lot of defense for the New Orleans Saints in this upcoming draft.
The New York Saints. But with the Saints, focus on defense, just like you said, Aaron, and figure out ways to get Alvin Kamara back involved in the offense next year. That's the way the Saints are going to get back to their winning ways.
Yeah, and I have, I said either need a linebacker or, a cornerback. And, just kind of add on to that defense. And that's why I said Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. I think that the Saints would love him. I think that he fits there very well. And that's why I don't see him dropping past 24 or 25 past the Saints. So especially, when Oklahoma breeds these really good linebacking prospects, I think Kenneth Murray fits really well there.
Now moving from 2 MVPs to one more in Matt Ryan and the Falcons. And guys, I honestly think they're going to have to protect Matt Ryan in this upcoming draft. I know we sound like a broken record, but it's such a deep offensive tackle draft that there's no reason not to.
Load up on the offensive line, load up on the defensive line. This is a draft where you load up early on the offensive line and you load up late on the defensive line. It's a pretty simple strategy if you're the Falcons.
I actually have the Falcons going in the secondary. I think that this is a cornerback that you really can't pass up, especially if you're the Falcons. C.J. Henderson from Florida. You have Julio, you have Matt Ryan, you now have Todd Gurley. Not really sure how his knees are, but I think that you can get a solid offensive tackle in this for the Falcons, but you can't pass up on this type of prospect in the secondary.
Now moving on to the Panthers. They're definitely the rebuilding team of this division. They signed Teddy Bridgewater, but they could still take a QB. They have their star in Christian McCaffrey. Where could they kind of go for the first step in starting this rebuild?
There's really no structure to this rebuild yet. It's going to take a year to get that structure and see what this new offense with Joe Brady, Teddy Bridgewater, and Christian McCaffrey, how they can mold. Joe Brady coming from LSU. This is a guy that has a lot of pedigree. We know he's going to bring a good offense. With that being said, no structure. Take the best prospect available at each pick. let the talent come into the room and then figure out what your mold is going into the future.
I have for the Panthers in all caps, need everything. Weak D line, weak offensive line, and you need to protect Teddy Bridgewater. For me, I had it between Derek Brown, the defense tackle from Auburn, or Jedrick Willis, the offense tackle from Alabama. And, I was kind of looking at the tape. I was looking at the depth chart, seeing what they really, really needed. And I ended up going with Jedrick Willis from Alabama. I think that you just signed Teddy Bridgewater. You need to get that big offense tackle. And I think that he is the best one in this draft.
Now moving over to the AFC South. What will Bill O'Brien do for his next act, guys? He's really kind of dismantled his team a little bit. It looks like it's a team that can win, but at the same time, it was so much better. Where the heck are the Texans going to go? And how can you possibly predict what Bill O'Brien is going to do?
Jake, I'll let you worry about the specifics, but oh my goodness, you got to draft an offensive line, and you might need to find a big wide receiver for Deshaun Watson. It's amazing how that ends up, though, when you let the number one wide receiver in the league go. This guy has caused more issues for the Texans than he's solved. This will easily be Bill O'Brien's last NFL draft, so he better enjoy it.
Honestly, it's really hard because the Texans don't even have a first-round pick. Bill O'Brien did all that, and they didn't even get a first-round pick. So it's like, what are you going to do when a lot of the talent is already off the board and you need a lot? I had them going another wide receiver, Chenault from Colorado in the second round. He's a really big wide receiver, kind of the DeAndre Hopkins type. I don't know if he even drops that far to Houston. So it's definitely going to be really interesting, and I agree, lad. I think this is Bill O'Brien's last draft.
The Titans looked pretty solid. They feel confident in Ryan Tannehill. They re-sign him. They have Derrick Henry. Maybe they improve their defense. Maybe, once again, improve the offensive line a little bit, get a little bit more protection. But this is a team that's looking to win now with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. What more do they have to do?
Well, they didn't overpay for right tackle Jack Conklin in this off-season cycle. So that's a position where you got to figure it out. A lot of offensive tackle prospects, though. This defense, though, all of last season, though, when their offense was going on this amazing run, their defense always made me hold my breath that they would be able to get stops. They're really bend, not break concept right now. They need to get a little more talent in there if they want to repeat what they did with Tannehill last season.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wrote lack of defense, solid offense. I think Derrick Henry doesn't need more offensive linemen. Jack Conklin's a huge upgrade. And I went defensive tackle. I went Ross Blacklock from TCU, big-bodied guy in the middle there. And then, they lost Jarrell Casey, so he kind of fills in that replacement.
Definitely going to be an interesting one for sure. Now moving on to the Colts. Brandon, where do we think the Colts are going with this one?
Well, an interesting theory about the Colts is they gave up their draft pick for DeForest Buckner. Their theory is that DeForest Buckner is better than any of these defensive linemen they could have gotten in the first round. You have Ross Blacklock. I'm sure Jake, our Mel Kiper Jr. of the group, will be able to get into this a little deeper. Chason, Espinosa. You got a whole bunch of guys. Gross Matos. So the Colts theory is that DeForest Buckner was better and that they're going to find some weapons for Phillip Rivers and make this a nice little one-year run.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of those names you just said are kind of off the board, but I have them going wide receiver here. A lot of them are gone, but they don't have too late of a second-round pick that the top talent's really gone. I kind of filled in I put Chase Claypool from Notre Dame or Michael Pittman Jr. from USC. Both solid receivers, another option for Phillip Rivers to put alongside T.Y. Hilton. I kind of agree DeForest Buckner is better than a lot of these prospects coming out, except for I don't think Chase Young. I think Chase Young is going to be one of the greatest players that we'll see in a long time. But that's kind of where I have the Colts doing, not having that first-round pick.
Now moving on to the Jaguars. It is Minshew Mania over there with them trading away Nick Foles. They feel confident in him. And, guys, he needs weapons.
He definitely needs weapons. There's weapons to be found. But the interesting thing, Jake, I forget, are they 8 or 9? I'm pretty sure they're 9.
They're 9.
They're 9. You can grab an offensive tackle there. You can grab Jerry Jeudy there. You can grab anything you want there. So it depends on their philosophy. Do you want to protect Minshew, or do you want to give him a top-level weapon? It really depends on the franchise philosophy.
Yeah, and the Jaguars have 2 picks this round. So I think that at 9, they're going to go with one of the best players in this draft in Derek Brown from Auburn. Huge run-stopping player. You know, they lost Calais Campbell. So I think that he's going to fill in really well there. And then they also pick at 20, where they can grab that wide receiver for Gardner Minshew. And that's where I fill in Justin Jefferson from LSU. They need more weapons, and I think that Justin Jefferson is that type of player. He's big, he's lanky, he makes incredible catches. He's one of the top wide receivers in this draft. And I think that he fits very well in there for the Jags, and I think he'll still be there at 20.
Moving on to the final 2 divisions now, heading into the NFC West. The Rams went for it all 2 years ago, fell short. We're a little off this season. Todd Gurley is no longer there. They could go a couple different ways in this draft. They could get better weapons for Jared Goff, or they could upgrade that defense a little bit.
They need to upgrade that defense. Their whole strategy here is bring in a bunch of young defensive guys and see who sticks, because this is a defense that they're just age limit. It got too old, and the kind of dynasty they had brewing kind of ran out, because this is just like the Eagles. You overpay for Goff, so you give up on a defensive or a unit of your football team. For the Rams, it was defense. For the Eagles, it was wide receivers. But this is a draft for the Rams to start rebuilding and see if you can make a run going into the next decade.
I think that, you know, the Rams need to pair somebody with Jalen Ramsey. So I kind of have 3 names filled in here. It depends who goes where, who goes before. I'm not exactly sure where the Rams pick in the second round. I have A.J. Terrell from Clemson, Jeff Gladney from TCU, and Jalen Johnson from Utah. 3 very solid cornerbacks in this draft, and honestly, I could see them going with any of the 3. It kind of just depends who's there, who's left on the board, or they could also go with another safety. I don't think Grant Delpit will be there from LSU. He's one of my favorite players. I don't actually have him going in the first round, and that's someone who I think that if the Giants don't draft Simmons, that's a player that you could take in the second round. But a corner is definitely a necessity for the Rams defense right now.
Moving on now to the Seahawks. It's the same thing every year. They need to protect Russell Wilson better, especially as he gets a little bit older. I think they got to take an offensive lineman here.
Yeah, they have one of the best steals of the draft last year with DK Metcalf, one of the most exciting wide receivers with his big body. But as always, they need offensive line. They need to retool their defensive line also. It's going to be about the trenches, as it always is with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks.
Yeah, they definitely need – I was looking at their depth chart, and they really need a center. But there's not that many great centers, past Cesar Ruiz from Michigan. And I have him going to the Niners, so he'll still be there for the Seahawks if they want him. But I don't see Jadeveon Clowney coming back. He's still unsigned right now. So I have him going A.J. Apenza from Iowa, big body DN, and I think that he fits really well there. But I don't think Clowney's obviously going to sign by the time we get to the draft. So it's going to be, do you want the center, or do you think Clowney's going to come back and not take that DN and waste a chance? But I think that they go DN there.
The defending NFC champs in the San Francisco 49ers are looking to get back to the Super Bowl again, Brandon. And what do they have to do to win it this time?
This is a spot where you get a gadget player like Laviska Shenault Jr. out of Colorado, one of the most impressive 2018 college football seasons, had to deal with a lot of injuries in the 2019 season, which slowed him down, made his measurables not that exciting at the combine, and really on tape it kind of held him back. But this guy, when he's healthy, is one of the most electrifying players in football. This is a gadget player to bring into Kyle Shanahan's offense and another weapon for Garoppolo to throw to. But if Shenault Jr., if they're not comfortable with the injury history, a big 6'4", 240-pound wide receiver by the name of Pittman Jr. coming out of USC is a guy that will fit right in their offense.
See, the Niners are lucky. They have 2 picks. They have one right in the middle there. They have one at 13, and then they have one at the end of the round at 31. And at 13, I have them taking a big wideout. I have them taking T. Higgins from Clemson. You're going to pair him with Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne and George Kittle. You could use an offensive lineman at right guard. You have one of the best defenses in the league. So I have them going T. Higgins there. And then at the end of the round, I have them kind of protecting that offensive line and going Cesar Ruiz from Michigan. They're going to build that O-line and continue to protect Jimmy G. And I see this team being good again next year.
The Cardinals have their big three in Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kenyon Drake. It looks like their future is bright. What do they got to do to take the next step in this upcoming draft?
It's going to be all about linebackers and secondary, and if they can find a running mate for Chandler Jones, who continues to put up some of the most prolific sack numbers in the history of NFL football. This is going to be a guy that might be top 10 all-time on the sack list when we look in a few years, and it's going to surprise a lot of us. But this Cardinals team, between Chandler Jones and then the mini big three they have going on offense now, this is a team where if they can plug a few more pieces in, this is a team that might be a threat going forward.
Yeah, Arizona lost a lot of that draft capital with that trade with the Texans for DeAndre Hopkins. And they have a pick at 8, and I actually have them going with Isaiah Wirfs from Iowa. I think that they need to protect Kyler Murray. You now have Kenyon Drake in the backfield. You need to give Kyler time to throw to DeAndre Hopkins deep down the field. Isaiah Wirfs is a really good offensive tackle in this draft, just continuously one of the best offensive tackle drafts we've seen in a long time. I think they protect him here, and I think they go with Isaiah Wirfs.
Now moving on, final division in the AFC West, the defending Super Bowl champions. How can you improve a defending champion team? Brandon, how are they going to do it in this upcoming draft?
It's bits and pieces here. Their defense, as always, can use improving. Linebackers, interior line. There's always ways to improve. Secondary, always. They're going to pick guys that fit their defensive scheme, though. They're not going to reach for anyone. It might look a little unorthodox, but they're playing their own strategy. They're that much better than the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, I think Andy Reid knows what he's doing, and they have 32 in the draft this year. I have them going with a corner, slot him across from Rashad Breeland. Trayvon Diggs from Alabama. He honestly could go a little higher than this, but I've seen a couple mock drafts where Trayvon Diggs is falling into the second round. I think this is a perfect spot for them, but I agree, lad. They're going to do bits and pieces. They're going to add O-linemen. They're going to add, other linebackers, secondary players. And Andy Reid kind of knows what he's doing, so he's probably going to go with the best player on the board at 32.
Kind of.
The Broncos, they get rid of Joe Flacco. They have faith in Drew Lock. Their rebuild kind of begins now. And who's the second piece to the puzzle in this rebuild for the Denver Broncos?
Second piece to the puzzle is Henry Ruggs III, 4.27 40 time. This guy is a blazer. He's able to run detailed routes because of Nick Saban being an authoritative leader down at Alabama. This is a guy that has taught his wide receivers, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, all these guys. You run detailed routes, then you let your skills bring you to the top. Henry Ruggs III is no different. He might be even better than Jerry Jeudy. In my opinion, he is from the tape I've watched. So if Drew Lock has a weapon like this, they're going to really spread the seams out going forward.
Yeah, no, must be lad was looking at my paper because that's exactly what I've circled here is Henry Ruggs III. Got to give Lock some options. Courtland Sutton had a phenomenal last year. And I think that Henry Ruggs is like Tyreek Hill. Very similar, very fast, can do the same amount of things. So I have the Broncos right there kind of getting their future wide receiver to pair across from Courtland Sutton. And that's a good group if you look at it in the future.
Their first year in Las Vegas, their first draft in Las Vegas. The Las Vegas Raiders, who are they looking to take here? Could they go quarterback? Could they go wide receiver? They could go a couple different ways in this one.
We know John Gruden. They're going to get players that have a lot of attitude. They're going to bring in guys that are workers, grinders, and they're going to continue to add to their defense and pick an offensive line to try to protect Derek Carr. But this is a team, there's holes everywhere. So you got to pick your spots. This is a team that could be a playoff team when they're playing well, but they look like the worst team in the NFL when they're not. So, again, the opposite of the Chiefs, you're picking and choosing your spots, but it's the opposite scenario.
Yeah, it's really, weird because John Gruden is a quarterback coach, and he has a quarterback-heavy room already with Mariota and Derek Carr. So when you look at it, they could go quarterback and, really mix it up in the league. But they also don't have any weapons for Derek Carr. Antonio Brown was supposed to be their sure thing. We all know what happened there. And I think that, at 12, they go with CeeDee Lamb. He's a really good wide receiver in this draft. And then they have another pick at 19 where they go interior defensive lineman, Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina. Kind of just fill in there. They don't really have a great defensive line. You know, their front seven's a little iffy. They could go linebacker there. There's a lot of pieces that the Raiders need to kind of fill in with this team. But it's going to just kind of be what John Gruden wants, and that's how it's going to be.
And final team, the Chargers at 6. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is the answer. They're going to go quarterback. The question is it Tua, Herbert, or will they fall in love, Brandon?
My theory, the theory I've been running with, is Love goes to the Dolphins at 5, Herbert falls to the second round, and Tua goes to the Chargers at 6. That's the theory I'm running with.
I have, you know, obviously Herbert penciled in here. They need that quarterback of the future. They just got rid of Phillip Rivers. They could outbid for Tua. You know, like I said earlier, there's a chance that maybe they want to work up and try and pass the Dolphins with the Lions or the Giants. And they could, you know, definitely use Herbert and his skill set. Didn't have a great senior season. He really should have came out last year. Obviously, I don't know if you guys remember, but I wanted Herbert instead of Daniel Jones. And then he said, "Oh, I'm not coming out." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that leaves the Giants no options." But I love Daniel Jones. So I think Herbert, you know, he probably should have came out last year, came back for his senior season. Didn't play that great. Really showed out in the Senior Bowl. And I think the Chargers get him.
The draft is going to be a lot of fun for sure, but that is all 32 teams. Thank you for watching or listening to another episode of the Bench Podcast. We are up on YouTube every Friday and SoundCloud every Friday as well. For Jacob Johnson, Brandon Ladd, I'm Aaron Valentino. We'll see you next week for our draft reactions. Have a great rest of your quarantine day.